So originally I wanted to get this tale out to all of you around Halloween. However, work has been insanely busy and I figured why don't we visit one of my personal favorite characters from within the Lady Death universe, the fearsome, gorgeous, vampiric goddess, Purgatory. And we have an interesting tale today as we will also be focusing on her encounter with another powerful being within the pages of Chaos, the Dark Lord, the vampire of legend, Dracula. What's going on everyone, this is Ace and welcome back to The Reckoning, where we talk all things Chaos and Coffin comics. And today, as mentioned earlier, we are diving into a tale involving Purgatory, simply titled Dracula's Gambit. This would be Purgatory's first encounter with the Count, for you see, she would become aware of his legend and this would lead her down a deranged path to finding the leader of the vampire world. But before I get too carried away, if you like what we do here, then don't forget to give the video a like, hit that subscribe button, click the bell as well so that you don't miss out on any of the Lady Death content we got coming your way. Your support is greatly appreciated and it truly helps out the channel, and I cannot thank you guys enough. But with that being said, everyone all good? Alright, so now let's begin. For starters, before we get into the journey that Purgatory will go through in order to find the Dark Prince, I want to give some context to where we are in Purgatory's story. The story would be taking place in the 90s, right in the heart of the Chaos Comics era. Lady Death might still be drifting in the cosmos and will soon begin her odyssey, or she could still be in hell trying to gain allegiances. The Evil One, aka Evil Ernie, and his army of the undead make their advances, taking control of the East Coast and the South of the United States. And the vampire wars have yet to begin. Purgatory, after losing her fight with Lady Death, who had transformed into Lady Demon at this time, was thrown out of hell and crashed back here on Earth, specifically the West Coast Bay Area. This is a fate most undesirable to her as she despises Earth and humans. It's a reminder of her slavery and how she has yet to obtain godhood, which she craves so much. Now, how she becomes aware of Dracula is simply due to her basic needs. She must feed, but normal humans like you and I just won't satiate her hunger, and so she becomes the hunter for the beasts of night. Vampires. What I love about Chaos is it's a world of demons and angels and all kinds of fantastical-like beings. But vampires definitely have a stronger presence within the world of Lady Death than they have had in recent years within Coffin comics. Two of the main pillars of the Chaos Comics era being vampires themselves, and of course I am referring to Chastity and Purgatory. But in addition to this, the vampiric politics and power struggles within the Chaos Comics' narrative is a fascinating one to say the least. It's a video that I will be doing in the future for sure, but again, the reason I am sharing this specific tale with all of you today is that if you're going to have vampires, it only makes sense that you incorporate the infamous Dracula and where he fits into the world of Lady Death. But going back to Purgatory, her presence here on Earth is a disruption to many, as it rearranges the balance of power within the vampiric community. Heaven is concerned, as Purgatory is to be one of the many signs of the Judgment War to come. And on top of this, Purgatory's vampiric children, Kabbalah and Jade, have been waiting for her to return so that they could destroy her. As while they both are powerful vampires in their own right, it is a life they never chose, and they vow to make Purgatory suffer for this. So alas, Purgatory is here in Târgoviste, Romania. And when we begin the tale of Dracula's Gambit, we find her getting ready to feast on one of the local vampires. For you see, she has spent the last couple of years looking for the one who exists within the shadows and darkness. And yet with almost all of the vampires she has encountered, his presence is undeniably there. They fear him. They only dare whisper his name. He is the one of legend, and this is enough for Purgatory to seek him out, as it is most inevitable that as she climbs her way to godhood, she and Dracula are bound to cross paths. And it's just like Purgatory's hot-headed nature to never cower. She will find the Count, she will be rid of his shadow upon this world, and she will be the new fear, the new power that they will all bow to. And it's this 2 years journey that has led her to this European country, and now at the door of one of the many castles of the Vampire Lord. But first, we are taken back to the beginning when Purgatory first returned to Earth and landed in San Francisco, California. It's where she located two vampires, Vlad and Sin. They will be her next meal. She bursts into the room, interrupting their own feasting, and she immediately attacks Vlad. There is some confusion because upon Sin finding out that Purgatori, despite her striking appearance, was a vampire like them, the young naive vampire believed Purgatori was there to assist them in hunting humans. These notions immediately fade, however, as Purgatori rips into Vlad's neck. She goes on criticizing the lowly vampires, all the while never letting go of Vlad. One of you? I don't think so. You wear their fashions. You're still attached to their world. You are all too human. Weak. Vlad cries out in pain. Oh, Dark Bird, help us! Purgatori continues to absorb every last drop of blood within Vlad to kickstart his heart, which is fatal to all vampires. She looks at Sin. Feel it? When the last drop of his blood drains into me. Sin replies, please no! Vlad's heart explodes out of his chest. I thought you came to join us, to give of your power. Purgatori just laughs. Give? Does a primeval vampire give to vermin like you? But she does allow Sin to try and take her revenge, but it's purely for amusement. She, however, is curious and asks Sin, tell me all of the Dark Bird, to whom your partner prayed out to in vain. Sin simply states, we never utter the name of the god, of Father. Now, Purgatori, frustrated by this answer, takes the wrist of Sin and has other ways of finding out. By sucking Sin's blood, she can peek into her knowledge. Purgatori is admittedly taken aback by Sin's response, as she almost begs Purgatori that she doesn't want to show her his image. But this is done not out of loyalty, it's fear. Sin doesn't want to see. And then Purgatori gets an image of an all-devouring mouth, of the monster as Sin knew him. A name is uttered in reverent whisper. Sin whimpers a faint no before the name becomes known. Dracula. Purgatori's mind is racing. I have to know him. I have to slay him. His potency will be my own, by cannibal magic and bloodshed, and this declaration would begin Purgatori's 2-year hunt for the Count. Back to current Romania, Purgatori approaches the door of the castle. She recalls the intel and what she has learned about these modern vampires and their tribes, and how very few of them don't have a connection to the Count. As she makes her way inside the castle, we learn that she traveled the world looking for him, as he always seemed to escape her grasp. Her main source of information from locating his many intimates, as she calls them, seducing some before slaughtering them. Out of all the servants and wives of Dracula that Purgatori encountered, 2 of them were most notable. The first being a vampire named Neville from London, a despicable creature, but it is through Purgatori's encounter with him that we get the background of the character Dracula, and how he has existed throughout hundreds of years alongside humanity. He seemed to have perfected cruelty. As some of you already know, he made impalement infamous, and was said to burn the destitute alive, and nail the helmets of visiting lords to their heads as punishment. Purgatori, upon hearing all this, is unmoved, but what she is alarmed by is that Neville seems to fear Dracula more than he does her. Even as she grabs his throat, he will not betray the dragon. Before she disposes of him, he states, "You waste my body, but my lord would have torn my soul. May the Count bring me back to him forever." At this point, Purgatori's end goal has changed. She admits ending Dracula would have been enough, but now she wishes to bring the Count, this lord, this dragon, to its knees, and have him succumb to Purgatory. Time passes again, and we also witness Purgatori's run-in with one of Dracula's many wives, named Elizabeth. She believes to be seducing the mistress, but soon finds out that Elizabeth willingly allowed Dracula to use her and distract Purgatory from his whereabouts. Again, Purgatory is taken aback at the loyalty to the Count, and it only feeds her urge to hunt him even more ferociously. It is also through this encounter where we see within the 20th century some of Dracula's actions are odd, as he seems to have used his accumulated wealth and power and influence for the benefit of humanity. Now, his intentions behind this are uncertain, but regardless, this does not align with the master of cruelty Purgatori has been made aware of before, and it only continues to confuse her and add to her obsession. But after learning about Purgatori's journey, looking for the Count, we are finally at the moment. She has been wandering his castle, searching, until finally, next to a grand fireplace with roaring flames, serving as the room's only light, she hears his voice from the bookshelves behind her. Welcome. There before Purgatory, he makes his presence known, but not in how she envisioned. He appears before her frail and old, He already knows Purgatory and reads her like a book, and seems to address her thoughts before she can utter any words. My appearance irritates you, yes? It's too human to show aging, but such pleasure comes from letting myself become this seasoned. I can become aware of the little pains in all things. You should try it sometime, old girl. Purgatory lashes back. I sucked at the throat of Lucifer. Do not mock Purgatory. Dracula is unfazed and again knows Purgatory as he's never stopped watching her hunt for him. These past 2 years he states how humiliating it would be for you to admit truthfully why you have invaded my sanctum. You fear me yet yearn for intimacy. Am I wrong? Who chased who these past 2? Purgatory grabs Dracula by the collar, but before striking he continues on. Nothing is more delicious than surrender to the truth. You see, the vampire cannot look into a glass to see herself. She must look into her own kind. Will you find in my history what is missing in yours? Circle my flame no more, my dear. Dare now to feel it all. So it's at this point that Dracula and Purgatory embrace and become intimate. But it's a violent, bloody feast of biting into each other's flesh, absorbing each other's blood in a mixture of hunger for power and passionate ecstasy. Now it's during this passion that we get Dracula's insight on his own feelings towards humanity. He tells Purgatory, insist you owe nothing to your former humanity, and humanity will rule you. It will break you. To be a legend among humankind, one pays a dire price. One must remain human at heart, with all the frailty and fear entailed. Just then their passion is interrupted by Dracula's dark creatures and children of the night. They come to protect their master, however he immediately transforms into his terror form and warns them that Purgatory is not to be harmed, and has them escort her to the border of his realm, so that she may safely be on her way. He offers her one last kiss, and then within an instant he and his castle and his realm are gone, vanished within the wind. His voice declares to Purgatory that he could not kill her either, and that she has his mutual respect, for he is Dracula, Lord of the Vampires, and her ally in the rebellion against her hated gods. Until we meet again. Walking away from this encounter with Dracula, Purgatory, while still despising humanity, has perhaps learned to embrace hers, or at least that piece of her that remains human. Her suffering, love, ambition, all of it, to allow herself to become more dangerous and to fuel her drive to become a legend. And this has been Dracula's Gambit, and the very first encounter between Dracula and Purgatory. And I would say overall I enjoyed the tale, but it's a bit of a mixed bag. For starters, I think that the most pressing matter in this would be the overall maybe sexual interest that Purgatory has with Dracula. As most of you may be aware, since her origin story, she really has only ever been interested in women. But I guess, and maybe Dracula falls under this umbrella, she has been somewhat involved with males, but usually of the supernatural. As she mentions in the story, she was to be one of Satanis's wives, and even the garments that Lady Death wears to this very day were originally intended for Purgatory. There is also, of course, Wrath, the ancient lioness Celt vampire that was the one responsible for turning Sakara into Purgatory. But their intimacy, I don't believe, went very far. Now, the one thing obviously that these individuals have in common with Dracula is that they are all incredibly powerful. And if we know Purgatory, this is one of her obsessions. She is drawn to power as she desires to overtake and consume it in her ascension to godhood. So maybe it was this that caused Purgatory to behave in this manner. Some other things to note would be that I believe Dracula's Gambit is canon within the Chaos universe, but it's kind of hard to say, as Dracula and Purgatory will cross paths again, and don't worry, that will be a video for another time, but they don't seem to reference much from their first encounter here. Also, Lady Death is mentioned in the story, and so it does make me think that this is within the canon. The final reason why this is a mixed bag for me is that it is written by David Quinn. Now, David Quinn is a veteran within the Outlaw Comics world. Probably many of you may know him from Faust, which I'm about halfway through upon making this video. Now, despite that, he is a writer that I am pretty familiar with, as his writing exists within my realm of comics. He has done several Lady Death and Purgatory stories, and I believe Evil Ernie as well. He has also done work with London Knight Studios, and of course this means he has written several issues of Razor. He seems to be overall a very nice guy, and nothing against him personally, but I'm just not the biggest fan of his writing. It can be convoluted and at times a bit confusing. I, for the sake of this video, tried to streamline the story, but the actual comic has a lot, and I mean a lot, of odd vocabulary that I don't think helped out the narrative. There is also some odd commentary made throughout the dialogue that I think takes the reader out of the experience. Just as an example of what I mean, things like referencing pop culture or Hollywood actors at the time. But all of this last point is just my opinion, and so if you love the way the story is written, more power to you. And as a side note, despite of what I think about the writing, the artwork is just awesome. I mean, I believe these fantastic pages were painted by Brian LeBlanc, and the artwork is most appropriate for the world of Chaos Comics, as it's dark, bleak, haunting even, but there also seems to be like a dreamlike quality to the pages. I think what the story overall may be trying to accomplish with Purgatory is perhaps having her recognize that her humanity, which essentially is her past, her suffering, and maybe even the faint joy or love that she felt during her time as that slave in ancient Egypt, can be used as fuel for her to surpass her current state and become more powerful, take her revenge on Lady Death, and obtain her goal of becoming a god. So with that, thank you all so much for watching. Please let me know down below your thoughts on Purgatory, Dracula's Gambit, and any other thoughts you have about Purgatory, Dracula, or Chaos and Coffin comics. I really appreciate each and every one of you, and until next time, take care.